Have you ever wondered what it's like to live where the nearest neighbor is 50 miles away, where the grocery store is a 4-hour drive, where your only company for weeks might be mountains, rivers, and your own thoughts? What drives someone to choose isolation over convenience, to pick solitude over society, to live where the only traffic is migrating caribou and the only rush hour is the sunrise? I was in Alaska last year, talking to a woman who lives 120 miles from the nearest town. I asked her the obvious question, why do you stay? She looked at me like I'd asked why people breathe. Why would I leave? She said. That conversation stayed with me, so I went searching for America's most isolated communities, not ghost towns, not abandoned places, towns where people choose to stay, where isolation isn't a punishment, it's the point. And what I found changed how I think about community, about freedom, about what we actually need to be happy. Ready to visit places most people will never see? Let's start with number 5.
Number 5 isn't technically a town. It's a tribal community in the Navajo Nation, but the isolation here is profound. The nearest city with a Walmart is 2.5 hours away. The nearest hospital, 3 hours if the roads are clear. I spoke with a Navajo guide named John. He's lived here his whole life. His family has been here for generations. He told me, "To you, this looks empty. To me, it's full of stories, full of ancestors, full of spirit." What does daily life look like here? There's one small trading post for essentials. Most people grow their own food, collect their own water. They have solar power and satellite internet, but they use it sparingly. The rhythm here is ancient, tied to the land, the seasons, the position of the stars. Why do people stay? John said something that stuck with me. In cities, you're always running from something. Traffic, deadlines, noise. Here, you're running toward something, toward peace, toward understanding who you really are. The community is tight. Everyone knows everyone. When someone gets sick, the whole community helps. When someone has a baby, everyone celebrates. It's not just a town, it's an extended family spread across 100 square miles of red rock desert. What if your commute was watching the sun rise over mesas instead of sitting in traffic? What if your social media was actually sitting with elders and hearing stories that have been passed down for centuries?
Town number 4, McCarthy, Alaska. Number 4 takes us deep into the Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, McCarthy, Alaska. Population, 28 in winter, maybe 100 in summer. And getting here? You can't drive. You either fly a small plane or you walk across a footbridge over a river, then hitch a ride on the one truck in town. I met a couple who moved here from Seattle. They run a small inn. They told me, in Seattle, we have 500 friends on Facebook and no one to help us when our pipes burst. Here, we know 30 people, and all 30 would drop everything to help us. The isolation here is next level. The nearest grocery store is a flight away. Mail comes twice a week by plane. In winter, when temperatures drop to 40 below, you're truly on your own. If you get sick or injured, you wait for a weather window for a plane to get you out. But here's why people stay: the freedom. There are no police, no government. The community governs itself. Disputes are settled by talking. Problems are solved together. There's a trust that's impossible in cities. A miner who's lived here 40 years told me, out here, your word is your bond. If you say you'll do something, you do it. If you need help, you ask. There's no pretending. You can't hide who you are for long. What if you live somewhere with no locks on doors because everyone trusts everyone? What if your biggest concern wasn't crime, but whether you stored enough firewood for winter?
Number 3, Supply, Montana. Not on most maps. Population, 12. Yes, 12 people in the entire town. The nearest gas station is 85 miles away. The nearest school is 120 miles. Kids board during the week and come home on weekends. I spent a day with a rancher named Hank. He's 72, has lived here his whole life. His nearest neighbor is 15 miles away. I asked him if he ever gets lonely. He laughed. Lonely? I'm too busy to be lonely. The cows don't care if I'm in a bad mood. The land doesn't judge me. That's better company than most people. Why do people stay? Hank put it simply. Space. Mental space. You can think out here. Your thoughts aren't crowded out by other people's noise. Your problems seem smaller when you're looking at mountains that have been here for millions of years. The community, despite being spread thin, is incredibly close. They have a phone tree for emergencies. They check on each other regularly. There's an annual gathering where all 12 residents get together, the highlight of the year. But there are real challenges. Medical emergencies are terrifying. Last year, Hank's wife had a heart attack. The helicopter took 45 minutes to arrive. She survived, but it was close. When I asked if they'd consider moving closer to help, Hank said, "And trade 50 years of happiness for maybe needing a hospital someday? No, thank you." What if your wealth was measured in acres instead of dollars? What if success meant how well you knew your land rather than how many people knew your name?
Number 2 might surprise you. The remote islands of the Outer Banks. Not the tourist parts. I'm talking about Ocracoke, Portsmouth. The place is only accessible by ferry. Where in winter, the ferries stop running for days at a time during storms. I met a fisherman on Ocracoke who's 5th generation. He said, "My ancestors came here to get away from something. I stay here to get towards something. Toward a life that makes sense." The isolation here is different. It's surrounded by water. In summer, tourists come, but in winter, the population drops to a few hundred hardy souls. The wind howls, the waves crash, the bridge to the world closes for days. A school teacher told me, "We teach our kids 2 curriculums, the state standards and how to survive here, how to read weather patterns, how to fish, how to be self-sufficient." Why do people stay? The teacher said, "Here, we're not preparing kids for tests. We're preparing them for life, real life, where sometimes the power goes out for a week and you need to know how to cook on a wood stove." The community has developed its own dialect, its own traditions, its own way of being. They've been isolated for so long, they've created a culture entirely their own. What if your children's education included learning to navigate by the stars? What if community meant that when a storm hits, your neighbor is already at your door with sandbags?
Number 1, Death Valley, California. Specifically, the few communities that exist in the hottest, driest, most inhospitable place in North America. Furnace Creek, stovepipe wells, places where summer temperatures regularly hit 130 degrees, where rain might come once every 5 years. I met a park ranger who chose to live here. She said, "People think we're crazy, but out here, you learn what's essential. You strip away everything unnecessary. What's left is who you really are." The isolation here isn't just geographical, it's environmental. The land itself keeps people away. In summer, you can't go outside during the day. Life happens at night. People work night shifts, socialize at 2 a.m. when it's only 100 degrees. A miner who's worked here for 30 years told me, "This place teaches you humility. The desert doesn't care about your plans, your deadlines, your ego. It reminds you that you're small, and there's freedom in that." Why do people stay? The ranger said, "In cities, we're surrounded by things humans made, buildings, cars, noise. Here, you're surrounded by what nature made, mountains that are millions of years old, a silence so deep you can hear your own heartbeat. It puts your life in perspective." The community is small, but incredibly bonded. They've saved each other's lives during heat strokes. They share resources during emergencies. They understand that out here, you're all each other has.
Number 2 might surprise you. The remote islands of the Outer Banks. Not the tourist parts. I'm talking about Ocracoke, Portsmouth. The place is only accessible by ferry. Where in winter, the ferries stop running for days at a time during storms. I met a fisherman on Ocracoke who's fifth generation. He said, "My ancestors came here to get away from something. I stay here to get toward something, toward a life that makes sense." The isolation here is different. It's surrounded by water. In summer, tourists come, but in winter, the population drops to a few hundred hardy souls. The wind howls, the waves crash, the bridge to the world closes for days. A school teacher told me, "We teach our kids two curriculums, the state standards and how to survive here, how to read weather patterns, how to fish, how to be self-sufficient." Why do people stay? The teacher said, "Here, we're not preparing kids for tests. We're preparing them for life, real life, where sometimes the power goes out for a week and you need to know how to cook on a wood stove." The community has developed its own dialect, its own traditions, its own way of being. They've been isolated for so long, they've created a culture entirely their own. What if your children's education included learning to navigate by the stars? What if community meant that when a storm hits, your neighbor is already at your door with sandbags?